that could be detrimental. That could be life-threatening. If you have the bleeding controlled, and then the guy's complaining about how the tourniquet hurts, can you just loosen it one turn, please? And you do that, then all of a sudden, all that blood gushing, he could die. In this video, I'm showing a few tools that we carry on our truck to increase our readiness to potential injuries in tree work. This is far from an exhaustive list, but it's a good starting point for smaller companies that are on a tight budget. Most of the tools shown in this video are very affordable. We'll start by looking at the most expensive item in the list, which admittedly is a big investment, but is essential for moving an injured coworker in difficult terrain, the SKED stretcher.
The way that you roll this thing out, flip it over, and then bend it in half. If you have to do this by yourself, it's hard because it's fighting you. So you gotta flip it over and try to bend it in half like that. And then when you flip it back over, now it's ready to receive the patient, and it's not like rolling up its bad. All right, so now feel what it's like to package a person up.
The company that makes this stretcher also sells quick connect style buckles that replace these thread through style buckles. They are faster to use, but they are an additional purchase item. We went with the official SKED stretcher, which is a $700 investment. It does come with a kit of items not shown in this video that allow a patient to be fitted for vertical hoisting as well.
All right, so that's dragging.
Ground.
Now, there's handles too. So
right.
See if you can both grab 2 pairs of handles.
Tuck that in. You don't trip on it. You can flip it to this.
Drop me. All right, and
Dude, you're so
now
heavy.
you gotta walk.
Never getting very sweaty.
This is what it's like. Now imagine this on 45-degree terrain.
Is this why we need the winch?
This is a tourniquet, and we use tourniquets to stop emergency bleeding. So with tree work, it's a good idea to have a couple of these, like one on the climber's person would be probably wise. Having them in the truck, having them in a first aid bag. And we have these red ones that are just for training purposes only, because when you train with these tourniquets, you do kind of start to wear them out, and you run the risk of them breaking when you might actually need them. So it's a good idea to not train with the same exact tourniquet that you plan on using in the event of an emergency. Anyways, the way that it works, tourniquets have different styles, but they basically comprise of like a strap, a buckle, and a windlass. And when you turn the windlass, it pulls this inside strap tighter and tighter and tighter, so it tightens that tourniquet. First thing that you want to do is put it on the limb that's been seriously cut. You go 2 to 4 inches above the wound and not on a joint. It's very important to not be on a joint. You got to be like a couple inches above a joint, but you try to be a little bit above the wound. So if I had my if I had severed my artery right here with a chainsaw, then I'd be putting that tourniquet all the way up here. And with legs, I've heard it recommend that you go through this part of the buckle first and then double back here, but it does take a lot more time to do that. So if I was doing this just by myself on an emergency, I would probably just do that, just like that. And you want to put that Velcro all the way down, engage all that Velcro down to there. You get it as tight as you can first, then you start turning that windlass. And this is very hard to do, and it will become extremely painful. It's already pretty painful, but you gotta keep going until you've got no blood circulation at all. Then you lock that windlass in to this little plastic guard part right here. At least with this style. There are different styles of tourniquets, but And then you can write the time on it for the surgeon to know when it was applied. Typically a person has 6 to 8 hours before, like with a tourniquet properly applied, before permanent tissue damage is gonna occur. So it is actually completely safe to practice this on yourself or on a buddy. You can tighten the crap out of it to the point where it really hurts. A properly applied tourniquet will probably hurt more than the wound, but it's really important to know how to do that and how to tighten it so hard that the bleeding is controlled. So you keep tightening until bleeding is controlled, or until you can't feel a pulse. If you can measure your pulse in these practice scenarios, then you're not doing it tight enough. When you undo it, you should feel like a rush of blood going back through your leg. That means that you had all that blood stop. So if we're doing this in like a scenario where you're an injured coworker on the job, I got my first aid bag out of the truck. In that first aid bag, I've got tourniquets. I also have gloves. This is really important to protect yourself first. You want to take just a touch bit of time, if possible, have that guy controlling his bleeding while you're putting on gloves, So that's what I would do. I'd be like, hey man, control your bleeding, I've got you, but I'm putting on gloves really quick. So that's one of the things that like EMTs have to start with. They say BSI, scene safe. That means body substance isolation, and the scene is safe for me to come in and respond. So anyway, I'm not gonna put gloves on right now, but that would be a wise thing to do on the job. And then I'm going to, let's say he cut his hand right here, or say he cut his arm right here with a chainsaw or a saw, and it's gushing blood. I need to go 2 inches above, but not on a joint. So that means I'm gonna have to skip past the elbow and come to right here. I'm just gonna slip this over. And here you're applying your own, locking that to start with, and I'm gonna get it nice and tight, get his sleeve out of the way completely, engage that Velcro all the way around, get underneath that guard. Really important to get underneath that guard because it's gonna fight you otherwise. So I'm gonna tuck it under the windlass. Now I'm gonna start twisting, and it is gonna hurt, but it's okay to do that. We have to do it until we can stop the pulse. All right, so he's got pain, so I'm gonna go one more turn just to be on the safe side. This is how it would really be though in real life. So all right, there's a lot of pain, so let's just, for training purposes, we're gonna stop it there. But see how hard this is to get in there? That's why we gotta actually practice it. There we go. It's in there. Okay, now I would be looking at the wound to see if it's still bleeding. So then I would be putting some bandages on, some clean gauze, and just packaging that up. But I want to see that wound, make sure that bleeding is controlled. But with training, what I can do is I can try to measure for a pulse. Okay, so I'm measuring for a pulse. If I can feel a pulse, then it's not tight enough. Okay, all right, so now I'm gonna take this off. Now I'm gonna try to feel for that pulse again. Yep, I can feel it now. So that means that I successfully cut his blood flow. So really, when you're doing this when you're training this with a buddy, you should feel for that pulse first, then apply your tourniquet, and then feel until you don't feel that pulse anymore. That's how you know you've restricted that blood flow. Really important. And if it hurts, like, okay, so what? Like, this is somebody's life on the line. Yep. It shouldn't matter if it hurts. So Ryan, you go ahead and apply it now to me. I think it's a good idea to just keep the tourniquet preloaded like that and fold it back on itself. Mine.
Oh wait, did I do that right?
Well, yeah, you just want to be able to get to that windlass easily, so I would rotate it around to where you can easily get to it. Okay.
Yeah,
but I keep mine like this, where the tab is already preloaded, and it's bundled up in my harness, and it's like on a pouch right here. And so even if I'm like up in the tree and I cut myself, I can take that off with one arm and just go like that, and then it's preloaded, so I don't have to try to fidget it out. You see, I can just do that right there by myself with one hand and start cranking it. Okay.
You're supposed to load this in.
And you
want
wanna-
to obstruct the thing from. I mean, is that enough? Or it seems like it might. It's already.
I do it just to there,
Just to get it in
it in there all the way. But yeah, it was definitely hard to get that windlass in there. But the problem is you need more Velcro engaged to keep it from slipping.
Yeah.
You definitely don't want it to slip. So I think, you know, it is important to engage as much Velcro as you can.
All right.
Then I keep this loop open as well, enough that it can easily get over somebody's boot.
Then it's.
You know,
Then it's also.
you don't want it to be too narrow of a loop that you're fighting trying to get it over their boot in the event that it's on their leg.
Also fighting it like there too.
I know. Yeah, you have to force your way around. Did you find my pulse first?
Okay, so I'm gonna check your pulse first.
Yeah, find my pulse first.
Alright.
Did you feel it?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I can,
Yeah,
I can actually.
If you want to do
how
it
quickly-
one-handed.
I can see how quickly. See, I think already it's gone.
It's definitely not tight enough yet.
Not yet.
No. I know. I mean, we did this to each other in the Army a lot. If it's not painful, it's not good.
It's not going to be enough.
It needs to be painful. Like,
So,
that way you know you've got it.
What if that's just the armies?
or you're just looking at the wound.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's good right there. So, putting that one in. Yeah! Yeah!
Yep.
That's painful.
It feels-
And my arm is going numb.
yeah, you immediately start to
So-
feel weird.
Now find my pulse. Now look, this is safe. It's safe to be like this for up to
Many hours.
6 hours. Yeah, I mean,
Without losing.
we did
the
this to a
limb.
guy. We properly tourniqueted every limb, here, and here, and then he did a burpee. He did a, I mean,
What?
and it hurts. Don't get me wrong, it hurts,
No.
but like he
Weird.
did it, and so you can go pretty hard on this.
Without losing limbs.
Yeah.
You ever-
Yeah.
It's good practice. Now, feel for my pulse, and I'm gonna release it. You feel that? Woo!
Comes back.
Yeah. Now, if this gets released before the medical team is ready, that could be detrimental. That could be
Yeah.
life-threatening. If you have the bleeding controlled, and then the guy's complaining about how the tourniquet hurts, can you just loosen it one turn, please? And you do that,
Yeah.
then all of a sudden, all that blood gushing, he could die. So once
Yeah.
this thing gets applied, it stays applied. And the only time you mess with it is if you have to tighten it to get that bleeding more controlled.
Yeah.
That's the only time. It's so important, okay? You put this on, it stays on. The medical team, when they get there, they can take it off or do what they're gonna do. But
Yep.
don't loosen it just because your buddy is in so much pain, because he could die. A lot of blood will rush out. All right, we're doing a full-on, a more.
I'm putting this right here.
We're doing a more detailed training scenario this time. Let's say that he's bleeding too. So you got the SKED ready. I noticed bleeding on the leg, so I'm coming to get that leg.
Oh no.
You're not supposed to turn me sideways.
Yeah, if we think you have, it depends on if we suspect a head injury or neck injury.
It makes the point to drag straight back onto the skid. I'm gonna do dead weight.
Yeah, be dead weight, definitely. All right, Ryan,
Or-
I'm sorry.
Uh-oh.
Ah.
Oh! No.
All right, right there. All right, that's all I'll do. That's all I'll do.
Uh-oh. Autumn's freaking
Okay.
out.
Now, in real life,
Ah.
I can do more. All right, I'll loosen it.
Okay.
Dog's freaking out.
All right, there you go.
Come to my rescue.
Oh.
Autumn, stop. It's just a drill. Sorry.
Aw.
Get his arm in.
I'm just starting to get these buckles. Now, if we suspected a neck injury, gotta be really careful jostling the patient around. It'd be better to have somebody stabilizing the head and neck while another person is doing all these straps.
Ooh.
But I mean, tomorrow's job we're gonna be on such steep terrain that, like, if a person got incapacitated on that hill, it would just be impossible to get them out. So that's where the SKED would come into play, and we would probably hook it up to the mini skid and like have the mini skid pulling a rope on redirects, a rope with some redirects, and just carefully guiding this patient past trees and up and over rocks and stuff like that, just doing it very slowly. But there's no other feasible way to get a person out to where the ambulance can get to them. It's a race against time, so we get them to where the ambulance can get them. That way, when the ambulance gets there, the extraction is already finished.
Ah.
Wait. I am underdressed. That, I would say his head's a little too low. Like, we probably should have had his head more up here. But you live and learn. And we can lift up like that. If we had to, if we had to carry, this is a good way to do it.
Just roll.
It's okay.
How do you check pulse on a leg?
There's like distal arteries and stuff, but it's very hard.
It's harder. It's a lot harder.
Yeah. It's a lot harder to check out. So you gotta go by what you're seeing, the blood. Those are a bunch of like compression bandages. This is a compression bandage, and the other one is also a compression bandage, and I can show what that looks like. We can just use the one for training. All right, there's some mechanical advantage tools. This thing is a double pulley on an ultra sling, and what it's for is, well, one, you can use it with building mechanical advantage if you need to hoist the SKED up a steep hill or something like that. Okay, but it can also be thrown around a spar, and then the rescuer can use it as a tie-in point to lower off of DDRT and throw the injured climber's DDRT line in the other pulley. So you can lower 2 climbers off of this in the event that you're rescuing someone off a spar and you don't have branches and you're on a DDRT system. Does that make sense? So like if you're on an SRT system, you could choke on the spar and be totally fine to lower. But like if he was climbing DDRT and he's working his way down, he's gonna need some kind of anchor to lower off of, because you can't lower a DDRT loop off of a blank spar. Yeah. And if the rescuer came up with DDRT as well, then you have 2 DDRT systems on a spar with no crotches to hook the ropes into. So that anchor will work for both people. All right.
More gauze tape.
What else did we've got? Gauze tape there stringed to the first aid bag directly.
Gauze.
Yeah, this is just like wound wrapping. It's just, this is for wrapping like a bandage in place.
Pharyngeal airway.
That's
pharyngeal, so you shove that in your nose.
Yeah, for establishing a more stable breathing. And then the scissors. Show the scissors that we have. They're tied to the first aid bag as well. Yep. That's to just kind of cut people's clothes off. You know, in the event that there's a chainsaw injury to the leg, for example, we're going to cut their pants off, really, and
be screaming, "No, my $300 pants!"
And we have to like monitor that. You know what I mean? You're not going to be. You'll probably be loading them into the SKED with less on than more. That is a mask for CPR, so that you don't have to do mouth-to-mouth contact.
And gloves.
And there's just a pair of gloves in there as well. CPR is really important, especially working around
electricity. If a guy gets electrocuted, CPR might be the only way to bring him back. So yeah, we've got all kinds of stuff in our first aid bag. Oh, and then we're well stocked with Band-Aids. Yeah. And there's that quick seal, that quick clot seal, which is in the bag, right on top of the Band-Aids.
Yeah.
I've got the Band-Aids in a weatherproof Tupperware to keep them from getting soggy. And then can I get that quick clot, which is in that little plastic bag? This stuff is really great. It's called Wound Seal. And for small cuts, you just sprinkle this as like a powder onto it and it'll clot it up and keep the bleeding controlled without having to throw a tourniquet and crap on it, just for smaller stuff. And then, we also have some Neosporin. And I think that's bacitracin. What else do we got in there?
That's it.
Do we have Benadryl in there?
There's allergy in that bag right there.
Oh, right here, Benadryl for insect bites, that's right. And if someone is having a crazy allergic reaction to a bee sting, Benadryl can buy them time, keep their airway from closing up.
And we got EpiPens down there in the welding room.
We do have expired EpiPens.
They're good for up to like 3 years after.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's not
the thing about the EpiPens is they're not supposed to be stored in heat.
Yeah.
And so, we can put them in the first aid bag, but then we have to bring the first aid bag in after every job during the summer, and it can't freeze. So it has to be brought in during the winter as well. So it's kind of a drag. None of us are highly allergic to bee stings, so we don't have them in the first aid bag right now. We used to have a guy who thought that he was, so we had them in the first aid bag at that time. But Benadryl is a great alternative to an EpiPen. It's not going to work as well, but it'll buy time as well. So I'm going to go over a pressure bandage, and I'm going to open one of these up just so that we can use it for training. But these are all about the same thing. You can tell by the diagrams that these are pressure bandages. And there's another one in here with another clean roll of gauze. And it's really important that when we're putting gauze on a wound, that it has to be sterile. So you should be wearing gloves. Their blood is fine, obviously. Like if their blood is on your gloves, you can open that gauze and stick it on their wound, and that's fine. But obviously anything else is not fine. So dirt, grease, your blood, anything like that, we can't mix with their wounds. So make sure that the gauze is, I've got it double wrapped here, okay? It's in its own packaging, and then it's in another layer of packaging so that it's double wrapped. If you open this up and it's like soggy, then it's not usable, okay? Anyway, this pressure bandages, we've got several of them. We keep them unopened, all right? I am going to open this one, and this will be our training pressure bandage. It is sort of an alternative to a tourniquet, and it can work really well, especially on areas that are not possible to use a tourniquet on, like the stomach or the side or something like that. So the way that it works, and I'm just going to show it on my leg here, you would put this down. This has got to be sterile, so you don't let this touch anything. You pack it with gauze as much as you can first. Then you put this on the wound. And by the way, when I say pack it with gauze, I mean you take your finger and you're stuffing it. You're balling that gauze up and stuffing it. And you should have like a big ball of gauze just right there. Okay? On that wound. Okay?
In it or on it?
In it if it's deep, and on it if it's shallow. Anyways, and if a guy is like conscious and screaming, then hold him down, because the most important thing is to get that gauze to stop that bleeding. Okay, anyways, then we're gonna put the sterile side down, and we're gonna just start wrapping here. And you're just applying that pressure, and your first wrap, I like to go around. I just go into that pressure bar. I'm gonna go around again, just one more time. So I go through it once, and then I go around again. And then I'm gonna go through that pressure bar, and I'm going to go back
over it. And what that'll do, you want to get this nice and tight, you go back the other way, and that turns that pressure bar down into the wound, and it puts pressure on the wound. And then you're going to just do kind of like an X pattern. And ideally, you don't, it's not bunched up at all as well. Like you ideally would have this spread out, but I'm doing like kind of going like that. And then there's an X pattern. Do you see the way I'm wrapping with an X pattern here? And then this thing right here at the end, it could be Velcro. Some of them are like hook tape, but this one's just more of a cleat, and that cleat kind of hooks into the fabric and will hold it. So wherever your last wrap was, you hook that cleat in. Mm-hmm. All right, so with our setup, we have our SKED shoved into this giant piece of PVC that we mounted to a ladder rack on our main truck. And then we put our first aid bag right in front of that. And we have a piece of rebar to just lock it all in place, so that all you gotta do to get the first aid bag out is pull that rebar, and then it'll slide right out. And we've got little rain holes, or drain holes, I should say, drilled into the bottom. I took a random piece of kitchenware and made a cap out of that for the PVC tube. That gives us quick and easy access, but keeps our rescue gear out of the sun and out of the rain. This concludes my introduction video to tools and techniques for responding to accidents in a typical tree work environment. None of us want to think that a serious injury could ever happen to ourselves or one of our crew members, but the truth is that tree work is one of the most dangerous occupations today, and accidents happen to even some of the most skilled professionals. Preparing with gear investments and training beforehand is the right thing to do. If an accident does occur, you're better able to respond quickly and potentially save a life. If you end up never having an accident, then at least your crew received great training and knew their company cared about their safety. Let me know in the comments if you have other affordable equipment that you think tree crews should invest in. Hopefully this video has helped you as you think about work safety in our industry. God bless and keep you safe on the job.